welcome to the Bad Politics. I'm Scott Stern.
Yes, my name is Paul Sickle, and welcome back to our a new location again, or a revived location on the south side. Different location.
Well, Happy New Year, Paul. We've been off for a few weeks.
Yes, we have. It's been, unfortunately, a long, cold New Year, but at least you got to go to Canada.
Yeah, to warmer pastures.
Yeah, right. So how are things going up there? I promised in our preview we'd talk about Canadian politics.
You know, it's I don't really get a whole lot of feedback about what's going on up there. It's more questions for me about what's going on down here.
I got a question for you about up there. Would you say Canada's like a shithole country?
I don't know if it's on the list of shithole countries.
Okay. I
haven't gone.
What would that list be?
I don't know. I need to go to the State Department website and see if it's if there's a current running tally of which ones are fall into that category.
Mm-hmm. No, I thought I heard it was Uganda and Haiti and
basically the African countries and Haiti. I think are the
shithole
countries that are currently designated shithole countries.
That was
Norway, not so much. Norway,
yeah. So, bring them in from Norway. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yes. Which interestingly has like one of the highest tax rates in the world.
Yeah.
That's not like an overtly 100% socialist command economy.
So, obviously, we're discussing the news of the day, which is our fearless leader.
He likes blondes, whether they're taxed or not. Bring them in from Norway. They're not a shithole country.
Yeah.
Right.
So there was a meeting about immigration reform. Senators Lamar Alexander, Republican, Dick Durbin, Democrat, were there, along with some other.
Was that the same meeting that Kevin McCarthy was at?
No, this is a different one.
Okay.
So much fun news this week. But no, this was today. And so he's looking at the immigration numbers about where people are coming from every year in terms of being granted visas and whatnot, and he just remarks about why we have so many people from these shithole countries when we should have more from places like Norway.
Yes.
And so
maybe people like the high taxes in Norway. They
right.
don't have to have Donald Trump.
It's harder to get people from Norway.
Right.
Is that what you're saying? Quality of life?
Right. They have a high quality of life. They have health insurance.
Life expectancy, maybe. Probably.
Mandatory weeks off.
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
Right. Why would you come here, I mean, we've got...
fjords.
Yeah.
If you get a little chilly, you go to you can winter in Italy for a minute.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
You're not that far.
No, that's doable.
So Uriel Pass or something. I don't know.
But it was just I have to say somewhat amusing just watching the coverage of this and just seeing the ticker at the bottom of the screen to indicate that the president's referring to shithole countries,
and the Washington Post actually said to put in their headline.
And not only that, I mean, people like Anderson Cooper and others have to with a straight face quote the president,
right? And then the New York Times, I love it, was so delicate. Was
of course
lawmakers shocked by the president's disparaging words about how they delicately handle
how they're alarmed
immigrants from certain countries.
So I mean, you and I were talking before this about what does this mean, and I mean, to me, it's like it just plays into the context of what we already know, and it'll make headlines today, tomorrow. They'll probably talk about it on Meet the Press, and then there'll be something new, and then we move on. It's not going to change anything. It's not going to drastically impact his poll numbers.
No.
So I don't know. It's just another day in Trump's America, from my perspective. But I don't know. I don't know if you see it differently in terms of affecting people's confidence at all.
Well, I do think a little bit. Even though we tend to overestimate how much his outlandish behavior harms him or whatever.
Yeah.
I do think that one of the things we started to see at the end of the last year was finally the Democrats making good on some election victories, especially most surprisingly the one in Alabama.
Yep.
And then in Virginia.
Yeah.
So Roy Moore, he obviously was a flawed candidate, but Alabama's so partisan to the right. That it took more than just that. It took a bad environment for Trump, too. Trump's approval rating was down to 50-50 or 47-47 among voters in that race, which is really pretty remarkable in the state that he won.
It was a close race even before the harassment things really hit.
It was close. More would have won. Yeah. More would have probably almost certainly won.
But it would have been close.
Right. Probably 4 or 5 points.
Yeah. Maybe it would have flipped the other way.
Right, and Jones won by 2 percentage points. I mean, not that that's a huge margin, but he won by
for a state where a Democrat hasn't won in a generation, and
and in a special election, and so on and so forth. In a state with really bad laws, regarding voter access for the black population there.
Definitely not a state that's known for voter accessibility.
Especially since so much of the Voting Rights Act has been eviscerated in recent years, including by the Supreme Court. That was a real impressive thing. I actually know one of the guys who was involved in running the campaign.
Yeah?
Wade Perry. Shout out to you, Wade. Roll Tide roll.
Nice work.
Very good work on the Jones campaign, that is. Just to be clear what side my friend was on. So anyway, they, that was very impressive, but it was also aided, though, by Trump's sagging numbers. Mm-hmm. And in a less impressive electoral campaign, in my opinion, was Northam in Virginia. I don't think he ran the most inspiring campaign. I know people, friends of friends, who were on the ground who thought it wasn't that great. And they still won going away. Now, Virginia is a much more trending blue state compared to Alabama. But to win by that margin, I think started to show that Trump's brand really is starting to tax him.
So your point really is that this just kind of plays into either stemming the confidence that people have in the guy that they supported, or just straight up maybe demoralizing the base.
I don't think it's moving a whole lot of righties over.
Mm-hmm. No, I wouldn't expect.
I think it might demoralize a few polite Republicans who quietly voted for Trump.
Yeah.
I think there's a caucus, like a kind of let the guy do his job caucus.
Sure.
And that crew, actually, I think that crew includes a lot of non-voters, too. Or people who might have voted for Gary Johnson, or people even who did vote for Hillary Clinton, but just tend to not be that political, or people who didn't vote, like I said, non-voters.
Yeah, people that traditionally don't.
Might have voted for Obama, but just didn't. They're just like they just didn't like Hillary, whatnot. And so I think that's a sizable demographic that we always have to be concerned about with candidates. We've seen it with Walker all the time. Whenever we go after him with John Doe, you can see that let the guy do his job caucus really starts getting vocal almost, and they wind up backing him up, and that was the recall result where Walker really spanked the opposition, even in a year where the Democrats wound up doing pretty well. Even in the Senate recalls, the Democrats did relatively well. They did so much worse. I mean, in that same election, Walker did very well in Racine County, but the Democrat, as I recall, still won the state Senate race. So it wasn't, Obama won later that year, and so did Baldwin. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is there's a let the guy or let whoever do their job kind of crowd of voters, non-voters, people in the middle. I don't think this is the kind of thing that makes people pause on that.
They take a step back and kind of reassess things.
Say, maybe be like, this guy can't do the job.
Yeah, maybe there's really something wrong here.
This hurts him with that caucus, I think.
Yeah.
And it also motivates some people who might be, like I said, the non-Hillary Democrat voters who voted for Obama or maybe voted for Sanders, but abstained from Hillary. It motivates them all to get out and vote too.
Well, it also makes
when this guy says things that are just totally unprofessional.
It also makes the job of people in Congress harder. It makes it harder for people, guys like Lindsey Graham, Paul Ryan, for them to defend this guy, because it's just
makes it right.
Because they have to basically, they're going to be asked the question like, well, what do you think about these comments in shithole countries? And they're like, well, I think what he's trying to do is this. It's like, no.
And then
how about you just respond to what he actually said, and don't try to pretty it up and put Christmas lights on it. Like, let's actually deal with the racist notion of
and
what
it puts those guys in a terrible position.
The words that are coming out of his mouth.
Because when those guys, not that I feel bad for Paul Ryan, but when Paul Ryan equivocates a little bit and says, well, Trump shouldn't talk like that. Mm-hmm. Then he winds up pissing off some of the real race baiters around in his district and a good chunk of the Republican base who say, oh, he's not sticking up for Trump and it's right to say shithole.
Well, but that's why you're finding more and more retirees coming out of the House. I mean, Darrell Issa this month announced that he's not going to be running again in California. That's a seat that has a great potential to switch to the Dems come this fall. So
right, I would submit that this was a comment that the whole deal doesn't ride on it, but I think it hurts Republicans a little bit.
Yeah.
I think you might see that soon because Trump was starting to gain some momentum in the polls. Even the generic ballot was starting to show Dems up by 14. Then it was catching back to about a 10-point. The Trump poll number gap was getting down to 15, maybe even less. He was getting right up to about 40% approval. Mm-hmm. So I think, he could put on another toupee. His approval ratings are so high. I don't know.
Well, that's tax.
Maybe he doesn't have a toupee. But,
I mean, I haven't necessarily dove into the numbers that you're talking about, but
I just look at 538. The trend was really, if you look at 538.com or any of the polling aggregators, I'm sure if you see on Real Clear Politics, the same thing. You just see a trend line that was very clearly closing and moving in the president's favor in the last month.
I assume that's directly
since the tax bill passed.
Yeah, exactly. It's correlated to the tax bill for sure. There's going to be a honeymoon that comes off of that. And then
the low water mark was the election of Doug Jones. And then after that, I think there was a mix of some Republicans saying, hey, we got to close some ranks here.
Well, they got to get the tax bill cut.
Here's one exhibit. If you, we could probably put this on our link to this on our Facebook page. But how popular you can see it really starts closing in the last that illustration is over the last few weeks.
Still underwater. It's pretty significant.
It's still underwater, but it was looking a lot more reasonable at 39, 40, 54 versus where it was earlier. And so I think this might bump the numbers back a little bit.
Yeah, it may reset back to where it was before Christmas or something.
And that's what we're going to need, I think, for the wave.
Yeah,
and that's what we really need. And we were going to talk about Wisconsin politics for a minute.
Yeah, I just on the subject of people retiring from Congress, though, we should mention that Orrin Hatch is not going to run again in Utah. So that looks like
Mittens.
Mitt Romney is being
didn't we talk about that?
Up.
No, we didn't talk about that in the past. I think we mentioned it in our preview.
We did, and Romney hasn't officially announced yet. However, I think he did change. I believe on his Twitter page, like he changed his hometown from Massachusetts to Utah.
Oh,
yes,
nice.
So just
North Salt Lake or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, that's nice for Mitten.
So I guess that says everything you need to know.
Mr. 47% will be back in the Senate.
Probably.
Hopefully, he'll be one of 47 Republicans. Although that's probably wishful thinking. At this point. So there's that, and then in state we've got more 15 Democrats or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I think
12.
I think 10 official right now.
No, I think it's even more. There's some that are
Paul Soglin officially announced. Mayor Madison officially announced earlier this week, so he's in.
I just don't get at all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where that candidacy is going, to be honest.
Was a radical lefty. Now he's kind of a pro-development, but still kind of lefty guy, and he's also never really won competitive races when he's actually tried to run against Republicans.
I don't know. I've never lived in Madison, so I just know what I know about him from reading about him on the outside and seeing him at events and stuff. But is it just that he thinks he can ride the Bernie wave? Is that
probably
what it is?
I think it's nuts. I mean, because I don't think he's not as charming as Bernie Sanders, I don't believe.
Yeah.
And even if he was, I don't think it's the same thing. There's a whole lot of reasons that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me.
I mean, he's entering a crowded field, obviously.
He's just not as articulate as Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders articulates a real vision. I don't know what Paul Soglin's vision is at this point. I mean, he might have had one in his student radical days that was 50 years ago almost.
Right.
That's a different story. So...
Yeah, so we'll see where that goes. I mean, obviously we've also got Malin Mitchell who's running, and we've got Tony Evers, Kathy Weinhaut, and others.
Well, Tony Evers, superintendent of public education in Wisconsin, has a new poll out today that he commissioned.
He commissioned.
Okay. Yeah, but they hired PPP, Public Policy Polling, and polled 780 Democrats apparently.
Okay.
And they're claiming that they have 29% support of the Democratic primary voters.
So plurality.
Right. The next closest is actually undecided, 26, and then everybody else. Weinhaut and Soglin are the next choices.
Well, I'm sure that's just based on pure name recognition. I mean, Evers had that landslide election last year, so there's a lot of people that came out to vote who maybe don't normally vote in off-year elections, nonpartisan elections, and they came out to support Tony Evers coming off of 2016.
Now, I had tip to someone else, although I don't know if he wants to be cited on this, but we like to call Tony Evers Captain Excitement.
Yeah.
Because of his electric personality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's kind of he's not the most exciting. He kind of looks like a fossil.
Mm-hmm.
Not that looks should be determinate.
No, but to play devil's advocate, we've had a lot of excitement when it comes to personalities in politics. There's nothing dictating that we need some.
However, Wisconsin Democrats have done boring for governor a lot.
Well,
one time it worked with Doyle. Then you had Barrett.
Yeah.
Which was worse. And then you had Barrett again, which is even more boring than he was the first time.
Right.
And then you had...
But Doyle actually won, though. I mean, and Doyle wasn't...
But that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And he was also running against Mr. Excitement, Scott McCallum. So...
Yeah, but he won statewide for Attorney General several times as well. So there is that.
I honestly actually think Doyle had a better personality, too, than Barrett. So Barrett was really... And then Mary Burke was even, I think, less exciting than Barrett. I can't remember. I couldn't really. I think they were the same.
Yeah.
And so the concern with Evers is that he would be much more of the same. That said, I have heard that I have gotten a chance to listen to a lot of them speak, and I feel a little bit better about him, honestly, than I did before.
Okay.
Evers. For the most part, it's still a really dull field, but I think that. I do think Malin Mitchell's probably the most dynamic candidate, but he hasn't really broken through since recaptured kind of that momentum.
It's early days yet. I mean, we're just getting into post holiday season, and there's a ways to go. The primary isn't until late summer.
I think his advertising, especially, it was pitched toward a Milwaukee audience, and then effectively toward people who are kind of like labor supporters, especially. Utilizing all his connections to the firefighters around, elsewhere in the state. I think he could have some appeal.
Yeah.
His hunting pictures look great, even though I don't hunt. But
I haven't seen him. But,
he actually knew how to hold a rifle. Unlike when you see Walker out there hunting. Yeah. He actually looked like he has hunted before.
He knows what he's doing?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Good.
Yes.
That's an important detail, I think, for people.
Well, he and his firefighter buddies, they so I think that's a good thing.
So maybe that gets.
I think you can relate to people in a way.
Maybe it's in a few NRI votes.
I don't know about that, but he's relatable at least. And so Evers, I guess, thought I was more relatable than I thought. When I saw Wax, I was bored to tears. Unfortunately, I just
Dana Wax was the one that was talking during the Packer game.
That was one time I saw him.
Oh, okay.
And then I saw him in discussion a few weeks ago, and he talks jargon a lot like Barrett. I remember Barrett doing that during the
kind of insider jargon where people were like, "What are you talking about?" That kind of
stuff that you and I would understand,
right?
And
the average person,
most voters wouldn't get at all.
Yeah.
Yes,
they're just going to tune you out at that point.
And I remember Barrett doing that a number of times during the recall against Walker, where Barrett would talk about, "Oh, Walker, we know that you gave back that money on the Talgo thing," but he didn't even the train
didn't
stuff,
didn't go into detail,
and he said it in this vague way that nobody could really understand what he was saying, and it was about how
he's kind of glossed over
you took out the credit card and you put. I mean, he tried just to talk in simple terms, but his analogies actually get more. Like I just saw him today. Like he was talking about how we need a police chief We need a new police chief. We need somebody that can make sure that the trains run on time. So he uses like this little, like phrase. No, what he should say is, we need a police chief so that our streets are safe.
Yeah, that's right.
You don't have to speak in euphemisms.
No,
You're
plain.
talking about a city with a large violent crime problem in the midst of a nationwide opioid epidemic.
Yes.
Where you've got huge public safety issues coming up. You've got a brutal winter happening. You've got, people dying on the streets from that, too.
Speak plain.
Yes, right. We don't need some. We don't.
Refreshing.
I can make the trains run on time. That's plain, except it's not direct to. Well, it's an expression,
and it's also not. When Tom Barrett says that too, he's saying it in the middle of us building the streetcar in Milwaukee. So that just it's going to take people's minds off of the police chief appointment,
right,
and to talking about the streetcar.
So Wax, when he was talking about, like, one thing he said recently was about, he mentioned who his campaign staffers were, as if they were, which are like, one of them had worked for Hillary's campaign, and so he's trying to show himself as a legitimate Democratic candidate. He's dropping their names like they're like respected. They are respected professionals. Don't get me wrong. But nobody cares. Who's a voter is going to give a shit about that.
The audience for that is people that work for other campaigns.
As flattered as I would be if I worked for his campaign, I would tell him to shut the fuck up.
Right.
It's not about me.
It's not relevant.
I'm glad you think I'm a good campaign manager, but I don't want to hear my name.
No.
Give them a reason to vote for you.
Yes.
When
you work in politics and you work in government, the last thing you should expect is credit for any of the work that you're doing.
Yeah,
you're supporting the person that you're working for, and part of the thing you sign up for is
I don't think that they were expecting it. I think
victories.
that Wax is like uncomfortable kind of being the candidate himself and is trying to establish his legitimacy by talking in like sort of Democratic like insider jargon and dropping names of like respected professionals that he has. That's wonderful that he has them. It's wonderful that he raised the resources so far to do that. That's a testament to him. But nobody cares about that.
It's just boasting to his competition, essentially. It's like, hey, look who I have on my team.
And it was kind of I don't know. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like if you want,
it's not relevant, and it's time wasted that could be spent talking about real issues. And
there's other ways to say you're a really viable candidate.
Yes,
you could just say, look, he could have just said, you know what, I've raised so much money already that I've been able to hire some of the most accomplished professionals in the state.
I've got all the best people,
and they work for me like Trump almost. But but they work, and the only reason they're working for me is that they believe in this vision.
Yeah,
and then go back to the vision of better Wisconsin.
Yeah, you can wrap it up in one sentence and not go in paragraphs deep into your recruiting.
So if I were to like organize these candidates in like who's electable as tiers, I would put Evers. It would definitely be in the better tier.
Yeah.
Wax would be in a lower tier. I think Mitchell needs to break through, but I think he's a higher tier.
Okay.
I thought Vinehout. I really think everything.
You've been skeptical.
I'm very skeptical, and I've heard her recent things is that she's going to run a really low budget campaign.
Well, that's not gonna help.
She wants to spend about as much. She wants to spend about $3 million, I think, or something like. I don't remember what it is. She wants to spend, but she wants to spend
primary or in the general.
Yeah, I don't know actually.
Because if it's in the general, then
she seems like she's so grassrootsy, and it's to the point where it doesn't sound realistic. Mm-hmm. And again, and then Mike McCabe, talk about an ego trip, and he won't even endorse the Democratic. And he wants to run a campaign. He literally says like he's not going to spend any money.
Yeah. Well, his background is obviously leading the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign and the whole Clean Government Initiative. So that's going to be his thing. But
it's a little like if I went to my landlord and said, "I really like my place, but I think that money's got in the way of living a quality of life." And I think that as much as I like paying the rent. I like my place. I think my rent should be $50 a month.
Right.
That's really what it ought to be. Let's. How about I start sending you $50 a month from now on?
Yeah.
And so they would just tell me to move.
Right.
I mean, it just doesn't. It does. It's. I mean, I think the price of gas is too high. I think it should be 20 cents a gallon.
So that's what I'm paying.
Right. And that seems to be like McCabe's mantra.
So we've got Matt Flynn is in there as well. He'll have some money behind him. I don't know. I mean, he's
that. Who would want to give that guy money? He's such an egomaniac.
I think he has some money. I think that's the thing.
Yeah, does he have that much money?
That I don't know.
I don't think he's Herb Kohl.
No, I don't think we go that far.
You know, I'd put him over Walks, but just barely. And I'd put him over. Obviously, I think McCabe is the one that he will have a following, but we better hope that somebody has a stronger. It can't just everybody gets 10% because then McCabe could sneak it out, and that would be a disaster. And I think McCabe would actually be a bad governor. I mean, I think he's so into himself and really not into he acts like he's into a movement, but it's all about how brilliant he is, and he kind of takes credit for other people's ideas. I feel like. My mother cited something. It sounds like she saw him speak in Green Bay one time. And she said he was mentioning ideas like children's health insurance, like it was his idea, or something like that. So I think that this field still is not probably what we were hoping, but there's a few candidates who can probably emerge into a credible threat against Walker.
And Andy Gronick still is out there.
Yeah, Gronick, he's had some eccentricities in that weird thing with that lawsuit. Where, he and his wife bothered that other couple, and they were right, but it's a little weird. And then I think that would get used against him. Yeah. And Kelda Royce is another one, and she's really smart and with it.
She's a former state rep.
She's such a mudslinger.
Yeah,
she was a real brutal person to Mark Buchanan and the Democratic voters in Madison, and none of it.
Yeah.
And I think if she were to get the nomination, I think Walker could unfortunately play on sexism, and with her being a mudslinger, they could cast her, in all the villainous roles they wanted. I know that this isn't what anybody wants to hear. I just think it would be really easy for him to do.
Maybe.
Just like crooked Kelda, because she's such a mudslinger.
Yeah.
She's actually not crooked at all. I think she's quite upstanding, but she is a mudslinger, and I think that would be.
We have to.
That would be. I think Walker could just wind up saying, "I'm above all this."
Well, but the budget that Walker's going to have in this campaign, it doesn't even.
I thought you were going to say he's passing another state budget. Really? Oh, that's
no. Funny. I mean, he's going to have the budget to try to tarnish anybody. You could be the cleanest candidate, and they're going to find some way to put a campaign ad together with all the scary music behind it and black and white photos, and make things look scarier than they really are.
Well, they'll slam everybody. The question is who can
emerge,
rise past it,
yeah.
And I think you have to remember, too, though, that I think that what we've said about if the anti-Trump sentiment is more than negative 15, and really nationally negative 20, which would mean in this state it's at least negative 15, probably. Yeah. It'd be very hard for Walker to escape being pigeonholed to that. Whether he's Trump or not, it's going to hurt the whole brand, which is going to give any one of these Democrats a chance. And the Democrats' job will be to say, he can slam me all he wants. What he doesn't want to talk about is his record. Pushing the Trump agenda, throwing people off of health insurance, and pushing Wisconsin last in education or whatever.
They're going to have, and the frickin' roads, man. I mean,
the roads aren't built. That interchange he made an issue of 10 years ago still isn't done.
There are towns up north where they are converting the entire city street grid to gravel roads because they can't afford.
Really?
Well, not maybe not cities. I mean, these are small towns. But they're making gravel roads because they can't afford pavement.
They can't afford the pavement anymore.
Because the state is not giving them money.
Right, and then there's no money for the lead abatement and
all that stuff.
So I think that now you'll get a lot of assist from the media, but I do think that as long as there's an anti-Trump sentiment, there should be something to run against. The Democrat can take some bruises in the primary, and as long as they're seen as having weathered or won in spite of them, I think that'll work. I would think that Kelda's style, especially since she did so poorly against Spokane, may not work against Walker. Yeah. Maybe I put her down at the top of the second tier or the very bottom of the first tier, but so I put Malin.
So are we agreeing that Evers is the front runner based?
I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say in the tiers that
if the election were held today, would Tony Evers win the Democratic primary?
He probably win. Yeah, he probably would. His poll, I mean, is probably somewhat credible because he's got the. Well, but I think in winnability, not Evers and Malin probably be near the top.
Mm-hmm. And you're saying Walks is bottom tier.
I think Walks is lower. I don't think. I actually think maybe Gronick is a higher.
I haven't heard much from him lately. I don't know. I mean, it's been quiet, obviously.
I think Kelda and Gronick would probably be the next tier, and then I think after that, maybe Flynn. Yeah. I think he would be off-putting enough. He could be easily enough characterized.
Such nice hair, though.
Touch. Yeah, I think that wouldn't work. And Flynn and McCabe really are pretty close to bringing up the rear. Mm-hmm. Vinehout's got to be somewhere around near the bottom.
Well,
I mean, there's a chance she can catch lightning in a bottle, but her campaign just seems really disorganized. And if she got the nomination, I think she would screw something up and not turn out enough voters or whatever, find a way to lose it. Yeah. So.
Okay. Well, there'll be more to come as we get further into the season on the Wisconsin governor's race and all these other races, obviously, as we get.
And then Soglin, near the bottom, too.
Yeah, I don't see that going there. He'll have a core following, that has supported him over the years, but I don't expect it to
And then you've got your deep web candidates, as we like, just the dark web, like Bob Harlow. But there's also he's got a lot of company in that undercard crew. There's people there's one guy who literally pledges to raise $0 at all.
Okay.
And then it comes to debates, and there's another guy, Jeff Rumbaugh, who likes to talk about the environment. Sounds good. And Michelle Doolin, who's a cosmetologist. But she's actually, I like her message, but again, they're so disorganized.
Yeah.
They show no. You can't even find contact information for their campaigns sometimes.
Yeah, that's the problem.
So,
it's easy. It's easy enough to put up a social media page.
Yeah,
so.
There may still be some more entries. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, it's there's.
I wonder if Pocano would run.
I think he's doing well where he is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, all right, listeners. Well, welcome again to 2018. There'll be more of this to come. And thanks for listening.
Yeah. I'm glad you got out of that shithole country. Wherever you were.
They gave.
This is Canada. Is that the shithole? I don't know.
The great way to.
I didn't say that. I might want to visit Canada. I don't mean that.
Yeah. It's a very nice place.
Yes, very good.
I enjoy my time every time I visit.
So. Very good.
All right. Thanks again, listeners. Forward.